Hello everyone, welcome to the new session of symptoms of common diseases in cattle. So this is the first part. In this session, we are going to study about some of the common diseases in cattle. That is, the first one is anthrax. Black quarter, foot and mouth disease. This is a very common disease in the cattle. Rabies, that is also called as a mad cow disease, and black tongue. Okay, so in this session we are going to cover these particular diseases. Okay, so let us start this session. The first disease which we are going to discuss about here is the anthrax. Anthrax, a highly infectious and the fatal disease of cattle, is caused by a relatively large spore-forming rectangular shaped bacterium called Bacillus anthracis. So this is a very important. This particular disease is caused by bacteria. So question can be asked, the anthrax in cattle is caused by virus, bacteria, fungi, or algae. So the correct answer is bacterium. And sometimes the species can also be asked. So that is Bacillus anthracis. So this particular disease is caused by bacterium Bacillus anthracis. So what are the symptoms of this disease? Sudden death. The first thing is, in this particular disease there is a sudden death in the cattle, often within 2 or 3 hours of being apparently normal. So when the cattle or any animal get infected with this particular disease, so it is so fatal that within 2 or 3 hours the cattle or the animal dies. Okay, so sudden death is by far the most common sign. So this is the one of the most common sign. Very occasionally some animals may show trembling, a high temperature. Okay, so sometimes they also show the high temperature and trembling, difficulty in breathing, collapse, and convulsions before death. So these are some of the symptoms of this particular disease. This usually occur over a period of 24 hours. So within 24 hours, these symptoms can be seen. After death, blood may not clot, resulting in small amount of bloody discharge from the nose, mouth, and other openings. So there is a discharge of blood from the nose, mouth, and other opening of the body. And in this particular disease, the blood do not clot. Okay, so blood comes out after the death. The blood comes out from the body openings. Treatment and control. Due to the acute nature of the disease resulting in the sudden death, treatment is usually not possible in this case. Okay, treatment is not possible in animals, even though there is a clinical treatment for the anthrax bacillus is available. Okay, anthrax bacilli is available. The clinical cure is available. Treatment is of use in case showing subacute form of the disease. So it is so sudden that within 24 hours, okay, if it is diagnosed, then only the clinical treatment can be done. But generally, the death is so sudden that this type of treatment cannot be done. In most cases, early treatment can cure anthrax. The cutaneous skin form of anthrax can be treated with the common antibiotics. So there are some common antibiotics. If the cutaneous, it is limited to the skin, that is the cutaneous form of anthrax is there, then antibiotics can work in that case. So there is always a prevention better than cure. So what is the preventive measure of this disease? Regular and annual vaccination of animals in endemic areas will prevent the disease from occurring. So best thing that we could provide vaccination to the cattle or the animals. Okay, vaccination may be carried out at least a month prior to the expected disease occurrence in endemic area. So when this particular disease disease is endemic to a particular area at that particular time, okay, prior a month, we can go for the vaccination. We can go for the vaccination. And never open a carcass of an animal suspected to have died from anthrax. So this is very important if we are going for the vaccination. Contact a veterinarian immediately if the following symptoms are seen and seek advice on control measures to be adapted. We should always contact to a veterinarian so that we can have a proper medication or control for that. Fever in this case is 106 to 108 degree Fahrenheit. Loss of appetite, depression and dullness can be seen. Suspended rumination, rapid pulse and the heart rates, and difficulty in breathing. So this is dyspnoea that can be seen in anthrax, and these are the very common symptoms. Lameness in affected leg, crepitation, swelling over hip, back and shoulder. So we can see some of the swellings at the hip region, back and other shoulder region. Swelling is hot and painful. So when we touch those swelling, we can feel hot and it is very painful to the animals even in early stages, whereas the cold and painless enter. Recumbency, that is the prostration followed by death within 12 to 48 hours. So this is so sudden that we cannot provide a proper medication. So best thing that we can do that a proper medication, that is vaccination. Next particular disease, okay, that is black quarter or the black leg. It is an acute, infectious and highly fatal bacterial disease of the cattle. So this is one of the highly fatal disease, and this also causes with the help of bacteria only. And this particular disease is caused by bacteria. Buffaloes, sheep, goats are also affected. Along with the cow, buffaloes, goat, sheep also get affected. Young cattle between 6 to 24 months of age in good body condition are mostly affected. So we can see in the young cattle, this particular black quarter disease is very common, very common. That is between 6 to 24 months of the young cattle. It is soil-borne infection which generally occurs during the rainy season. So this is a soil-borne disease, means the bacteria for this particular disease is present in the soil and it get easily spread during the rainy season. In India, the disease is sporadic, that is 1 to 2 animal in nature. Causal organism, it is a bacterial disease caused by Clostridium chauvoei. So this is a particular bacteria that causes black quarter or the black leg disease. Okay, it is a sporadic, means 2 animals. This complete in the 2 animals. This particular disease is completed in 2 animal life cycle. Symptoms: fever, that is again 106 to 108 degree Fahrenheit. Loss of appetite, depression and dullness. Suspended rumination. So animals cannot eat at that particular time. Okay, so rumination is suspended. Rapid pulse and heart rate. So heart rate is also affected. Difficult in breathing, that is dyspnoea. So animal cannot breathe properly at that particular time. So these are some of the symptoms of black quarter disease or black leg disease. Lameness in affected leg. Crepitation, swelling over hips, back and shoulder. So in this particular disease also we can see there is a swelling over the hip region, back and the shoulder region. Swelling is hot and painful in early stages, whereas cold and painless enter. Recumbency, prostration followed by death within 12 to 48 hours. Early treatment can be possible to complete cure of the animal. So if we diagnose the symptom, okay, and if it is diagnosed, the disease is diagnosed, and we can go for the early treatment, then we can save or we can cure our animals. Consult with veterinarian immediately. So in this particular symptoms, if we see these symptoms in our animals, okay, we should immediately consult to our veterinarian doctor. So third particular disease, this is very common in animals, that is foot and mouth disease. Foot and mouth disease in cattle. The foot and mouth disease is highly communicable disease affecting cloven-footed animals. So this is one of the very common disease, and it is highly communicable also, means it can be spread from animal to animal. It is characterized by fever, formation of vesicles and blisters in the mouth, udder, teats, and on the skin between the toes and above the hoofs. So we can see there are formation of vesicles and blisters in the mouth. So mouth is totally affected. There is udder, teats, and on the skin between the toes and above the hooves. So hooves are also affected. So that is why it is called as foot and mouth disease. So it is also characterized by fever, high fever. So in this particular disease, the animals are having fever. In India, the disease is widespread and assumes a position of importance in the livestock industry. So this is one of the very important disease in case of India, because generally the cattle or the livestock industry are badly affected time to time with this particular disease. So this is widespread in case of India. The disease is spread by direct contact or indirectly through the infected water, manure, hay, and pastures. Now this is very, very important. This particular disease spread directly contact as well as indirectly contact. Means if a particular animal or a cattle is infected with this disease and another animal comes and contact either its mouth or food, then there is a chance of getting spread of that disease to other animals. But there is also a chance of spreading this particular disease indirect way. How? Infected water, means a particular cattle, if it's having foot and mouth disease and it is consuming water from a source, and if another healthy animal consume water from that source, then there is a chance of infection. In the same way, manure and other pastures can also spread indirect way this particular disease. It is also conveyed by the cattle attendants. So sometimes cattle attendants are there who is looking after the cattle. Okay. So when they take care of one diseased cattle and they can go to take care of another healthy cattle, so there is a chance of spreading that particular disease. Okay, so it is known to spread through recovered animals, field rats, porcupine, and birds. So these are the other animals that can also spread this particular disease. Now, what are these symptoms? Fever 104 to 105 degree Fahrenheit. Profuse salivation, ropes of stringy saliva hangs from the mouth. So we can see a lot of saliva coming out of the mouth from the infected cattle. Vesicles appear in the mouth and the interdigital space. So in the case of mouth or in the buccal cavity, there is a formation of vesicles. Lameness observed. Crossbreed cattle are highly susceptible to it. Now, what is the treatment? The external application of antiseptic contributes to the healing of the ulcers and warts of attacked by the flies. So we can have some antiseptics, right? Antiseptic can be applied and we can get rid of these ulcers and warts even. A common and inexpensive dressings for the lesions in the feet is a mixture of coal tar and copper sulfate in the proportion of 5:1. Very important. Coal tar and copper sulfate. Okay. Copper sulfate can be taken in the ratio of 5:1, and that particular mixture can be applied to the lesions in the feet. So this is not very expensive. This can easily affordable by any particular farmers or the livestock who's having the livestock. They can take care with this particular mixture. Precautions. Heavy milk animals and the exotic breeds of the cattle breed for milk should be protected regularly. So exotic breeds and heavy milk animals should be protected from this particular disease. So it is advisable to carry out 2 vaccination at an interval of 6 months. So there is a 2-step vaccination at the interval of 6 months. So that can be followed by an annual vaccination program. And after that, there is also an annual vaccination program. So this is very important as this particular disease is very harmful and very common in case of India. Isolation and segregation of the sick animals. So first of all, we can take care that we should keep any infected cattle or animal in a different place so that they can be segregated. Okay, so segregation and isolation is first step. It should be informed immediately to the veterinary doctor. So if we see a particular symptoms of foot and mouth disease, we should immediately reach to the veterinary doctor. Disinfection of animal sheds with the bleaching powder or the phenol. So where the animals are, when these animals are placed in a shed, that particular place should be cleaned properly with the help of bleaching powder and phenol, so that there is no spread of this particular disease. Attendants and equipments for the sick animals should be ideally separate. The equipment should be thoroughly sanitized so that it cannot spread this particular disease to other healthy animals. Proper disposal of leftover feed by the animal. So whatever the feed left over by the infected animal, that particular leftover should be proper disposed of. Proper dispose of care cases even, and control of flies, because flies can also spread this disease. Okay, so next one is rabies, that is mad cow disease. Mad cow disease. Rabies is the disease of dogs, fox, wolves, hyenas, and in some places it is disease of bats which feed on blood, that is sanguivorous. The disease is passed to other animals or to people if they are bitten by animals with the rabies. So they can spread to other animals and even to the human even. Okay, so if the fox or the dogs or the wolves, they are infected with the rabies and they are biting to other animals, so they can spread to, this particular disease can spread to those animals also. The germs which cause rabies live in the saliva of the sick rabied animals. So their saliva contain all the germs that causes this disease. Okay, this disease is a killer disease, but not every dog which bite is infected with the rabies. So generally there is a this disease is caused by biting of dog, but all the dog biting do not causes this disease. Only the infected dog which is having a rabies infection, that can spread disease after biting. When the rabid animal bite another animal or the human, the germs which live in its saliva passes into the body through the wound caused by the bite. The germs travel along the nerves to the brain, so it affects the brain. The time between the bite and the first appearance of the sign that the bitten animal or the human has been infected can take 2 to 10 weeks or more. So within 10 weeks, we can see the initial symptoms of this disease. Okay. The time taken depends on the distance of the bite from the brain. So how much time take, it depends the distance of bite to the brain in the body. The bite is on the face or head, the bitten animals or human will quickly show the sign because it takes less time for these germs to move to the brain. But if the bite is on the leg, so it will take much longer for sign to develop. General sign of rabies: you should first look for the marks of the bite and discover where and when the animal was bitten. All rabid animals show the similar sign in the beginning. They change their normal behavior and behave very strangely. So we can see the behavior of the rabid animal. Okay, and we can judge that particular animal is showing any abnormal behavior or the strange behavior. So on the basis of that, we can diagnose this particular disease. They stop eating or drinking. So rabies animals do not eat or drink. The male animal will try to mate other animals even. There is no change in the body temperature. These signs will continue for 3 to 5 days. So these are some of these early signs of this disease. The animal will develop one or the other of the two types of the disease. The furious, mad type of the disease makes the animal aggressive and it will bite anything. So this is the furious or a mad type of this particular rabies disease. The quiet or the dumb type, when the animal is quiet and does not even move. So two types of rabies are there. Dogs show either of the two types of rabies. The dog with the dumb or the quiet type of disease cannot move. It looks as if it has bone stuck in the mouth and saliva drips from the mouth. So in this case, when the dumb or quiet type of disease is there, the animal is stuck at its place and the saliva dips from the mouth. This is the symptom of the dumb or quiet type of disease. Rabies in the dog lasts about 10 days before the animal dies. If the animal does not die after this length of time, then it may not be suffering from the rabies. So this is a very important days, that is 10 days, that show the early symptoms and reaching to the death of the dog. Rabies is characterized by the animals becoming restless and excited. So in this particular disease, the animals become very restless and it is very excited at the same time. They may bite themselves and saliva drips from the mouth. So they are so excited and so restless that sometimes they can bite themselves. The most important sign in the cattle is that animal bellows, calls very frequently with this strange sound. So they produce strange sound. The animal will become paralyzed and sometimes they die even after the paralysis. Rabies in the horse and camel. So along with the dog, we can see rabies in the camel and horse also. The horse will show the furious mad type of the disease. It will kick and bite and show sign of similar to the colic. Animal will die after paralysis of the back leg. So generally there is a paralysis at the back legs of the horse and they die. In the camel, the sign of rabies are similar to those shown by animals in the rat. So what do with a biting dog? What we should do? Remember that not every dog which bites has rabies. If the dog belongs to somebody, ask the owner about its normal behavior. So that we can diagnose that whether our dog is having that disease or not. If the dog is showing the sign of rabies, you must inform your veterinary officer immediately. The dog must be shot, and if it has bitten anybody, they must be taken to the hospital immediately for the vaccination. Control of rabies. Dogs in your community can be vaccinated against rabies. So we can vaccinate the dogs against the rabies. You should ask your veterinary service about the vaccination against the rabies. So if there is an outbreak of rabies, the livestock in your community can be vaccinated too. So it can affect our livestock. So that is why it is important to control the rabies of the dogs. So the dogs do not come under the livestock, but still we are studying this disease of the dog here because it can affect our livestock also. Blue tongue disease. Blue tongue is a disease which is transmitted by the midges, infects domestic and wild ruminants. So our both domestic and wild ruminants are infected by this disease. And it is also seen in the camelids and sheep, particularly badly affected. So sheep are badly affected with this particular disease. Cattle, although infected more frequently than sheep, but they do not always show the sign of disease. So cattle are very often get infected with this particular disease, but the sign of the disease can be seen very commonly in the case of sheep. Virus spread between animals occur via midges of culicoid species. So culicoid species generally is the spread this disease. This is the virus. The disease is caused by the virus and it is spread between the animals via midges of the culicoid species. The likelihood of the mechanical transmission between the herds and the flocks, or indeed within a herd or a flock by unhygienic practices, the use of contaminated surgical equipment or hypodermic needles. So if we are using the same needle to the animal, then there is a chances of a spread of this particular disease. So this disease is very commonly seen in the case of herd or a flock, means all the group of animals are infected if this disease is spread. Okay. So now what are the clinical signs? Include sheep. In the case of sheep, eye and the nasal discharge. There is a discharge from the eye and nose both. Drooling, high body temperature, swelling in mouth, head and neck, lameness, and the wasting of muscles in hinged leg. Hemorrhages into or under the skin, and inflammation of the coronary band, respiratory problems, fever, and lethargy. So in the case of sheep, as we all know that this is very common in the case of sheep and all the symptoms can be seen. So these are the different symptoms that can be seen in the case of sheep. Eye and nasal discharge, drooling, high body temperature, swelling in the mouth, head and neck, lameness and the wasting of the muscle in the case of hind leg. Hemorrhages under the skin, inflammation of the coronary band, and there is also a problem of respiration. Now, what are the controls? Inspect stock closely, particularly focusing on the lining of the mouth and nose and the coronary band. Okay, so the veterinary doctor should diagnose this particular disease by inspecting stock closely, particularly focusing on the lining of the mouth and nose. If an animal is suspected as having the blue tongue, it must be reported as quickly as possible. Telephone your local animal health office immediately. So this is all about this session. We will have some other session to complete this particular disease. Till then, thank you very much.